You know, it's been a while since I last covered Lily Orchard. Let's see what's going on in her neck of the woods.
Part of why this conversation is so cyclical and difficult to drill into people's heads is that fandom likes to think in absolutes. Fandom can't say something like, I like following a long-term story more than I like getting a dozen little stories. They have to say some kind of garbage like, serialized shows are inherently better than episodic shows.
I sincerely apologize if this is a stupid question, but who the fuck is saying this? Can we get some names and examples, please? The most we get throughout the video is Lily talking about the vague concept of fandom, which I guess just means people who are fans of things I really don't know, and people who apparently harass others for not giving Zelda a high enough review score.
I know that doesn't make sense to those of you with working brains, but remember, some people are sending death threats over review scores for Zelda. We're not really dealing with a sane, stable group of people here.
The marketers have discovered there's no Venn diagram between Bath fans and gamers. It's just a circle.
But let's seriously assume Lily is taking a firm anti-absolutist stance on the topic of serialization. After all, she says that she hates it when people hear her opinion on the topic and assume that she is completely opposed to it in every situation.
So when someone comes out criticizing the glut of bad serialized cartoons that bungle their plots in the name of chasing a trend, that gets filtered into the fandom brain as saying, serialization is inherently bad and nobody should do it.
Which, side note, I should point out that serialization is an incredibly vague term. Any show with a status quo that is altered on any kind of regular basis could be considered serialized. Fuck, a show doing something as simple as introducing a new recurring character could be seen as, to some extent, serializing itself, because now there's continuity regarding that character's entrance. Characters develop over the course of most series because of events that happened previously in said show. Does that count as serialization because they're doing things now that wouldn't have made sense for them to do previously due to a different status quo emerging? Fuck, this same video sees Lily praise Archie's character in All in the Family, specifically regarding how much he develops over the course of the series.
So it was simultaneously rather aggressive at times, but not so extreme that you'd honestly think Archie was a full-on white supremacist. And that divide is shown many times in the show, especially after Mike and Gloria leave, and Archie no longer has someone to dress him down, and so he cools off and grows as a person because without the contrasting characters, that central gimmick just doesn't work. It made Archie into a character a lot of people loved because at his core is someone who means well, but was just taught a lot of garbage.
Very few shows are 100% episodic is my point, because very few characters act the same in episode 1 as they do in episode 100. As such, the way Lily talks about serialization, to be blunt, just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, here's her chastising those who take an anti-absolutist stance on serialization.
This is why when I criticize snapshot redemptions, some drooling simpleton will show up going, it works if it's done well, which is a useless non-argument that shows you weren't paying attention in the first place. As someone who likes to foster discussion about why frequently mishandled tropes often fail to stick the landing, this adamant refusal to engage with the discussion and just spout scripture like a Catholic in a symposium on antimatter is increasingly wearing on my patience. It's the most difficult part about this job because fandom gets so attached to tropes or concepts that if you even try to discuss them in any objective way, they just shut their ears and start repeating, it works if it's done well, it works if it's done well, it works if it's done well, over and over again like the start of a spree killer's manifesto.
Ignoring that utterly tasteless comment at the end, yeah, if something is done well, then by definition it works. I don't get the issue with that statement. Tropes are tools, remember? Neither good nor bad on their own, and instead entirely dependent on how they're used. Fuck, this is something Lily concedes later when she says that good writers see a story that would work better serialized and then do such a thing.
I mentioned before there's an issue of dogma, where a lot of people believe that serialized story-driven shows are inherently better in every way. Now, the general public doesn't believe this. They watch both and don't have an identity crisis about it, and good writers generally view these methods of storytelling as tools to use when they need them.
But you see, this is what I mean when I say that Lily is arguing against a point nobody is making. Who the fuck thinks that serialized story-driven shows are inherently better than episodic shows? And no, the amorphous blob known as fandom doesn't count as a response. Either provide me actual people you're arguing with, or admit that you're making up arguments to respond to. But again, what gets me the most is the fact that Lily went from decrying fandom absolutism to mocking an anti-absolutist sentiment. If you say a trope works when it is done well, in response to somebody criticizing a trope, not only are you stating something rather obvious, but you're also taking an anti-absolutist stance on that trope. Also, Lily Orchard follows this up with this absolutely amazing claim.
Just recently I was discussing magic systems, a fake storytelling concept invented by fandom over on my Tumblr, and the discussion was routinely being ground to a halt by people who kept repeating, "It works if it's done well, it works if it's done well, it works if it's done well," to the point I just dropped any pretense of professionalism and started asking them if they were diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome.
Wait, magic systems are made up by fans? Since when, given all that's really needed for a piece of media to have a magic system is for it to have magic and some kind of limitations on what said magic can do. Also, literally none of the posts you showed saw somebody saying that magic systems work if they're done well. This person is just talking about how neither hard magic or soft magic systems are inherently absolutist regarding how a writer is going to use them. This person is saying that limitations on magic can be useful if you don't want your audience to wonder why they didn't use an obvious solution to the conflict at hand. And this person is asking a similar question to the one you just showed, except they're focusing more on creating tension specifically, as opposed to resolving conflicts. This isn't even the only example of Lily misrepresenting Tumblr screenshots, by the way. There's also this part near the end of the video.
As I'm writing this, I'm watching my good buddy Ginger trying to tell some guy that making a serious story about existential dread is completely undercut by the fact that they're clinging to the anime trope of a 1,000-year-old child, and that guy just continues talking past her despite the fact that they came to him looking for advice on how to make the story work. And this guy is just going on and on and on about his complex lore, and it's like, dude, just make the character a fucking adult, you stubborn asshole.
The way Lily phrases this makes it sound like Ginger's having a back and forth with this person, especially that comment of this person talking past Ginger continuously, when, best as I can tell, if they were, Lily doesn't show evidence of that. In fact, the two screenshots Lily shows are from the same Tumblr post. Here's the full Tumblr post from Ginger, by the way. Sorry it's hard to read. I had to zoom out a lot in order to show you guys the whole thing because the post is quite lengthy. But Ginger's response at the bottom is what Lily shows in the first screenshot, and the guy's question being what Lily showed in the second screenshot. I actually decided to seek out the entire back and forth between this anonymous Tumblr user and Ginger just to see how it went, and yeah, unsurprisingly, Lily misrepresented it quite a bit. The first post sees this anonymous user asking Ginger for writing advice. The second post is the one I just showed you guys. It's little more than them explaining in more detail why they chose this particular trope that Ginger took issue with. The third post isn't them defending this decision, it's them thinking of new ways the story could work with this criticism in mind. I know, how dare they? And the fourth post sees them apologizing for how they've been acting. I'll gladly concede this person was acting fucking weird. However, they weren't talking past Ginger. They weren't even really arguing with Ginger, except for in maybe the second message. So Lily completely misrepresented this interaction. Yeah, giving examples appears to not be Lily's strong suit. Maybe that's why she consistently refuses to. Given less than a minute after the clip I just showed you ends, we get this line.
So, one argument I often see with alarming frequency is that serialized cartoons are more mature than episodic cartoons and don't treat the audience like idiots.
Again, who the fuck is saying this? Maybe I just missed all those YouTube videos of people repeating this phrase verbatim. However, I very much doubt I'm the only one, and as such, a decent amount of your audience is going to be really fucking confused when you drop these really specific claims that you say everybody is saying without any sort of further explanation or examples. And this leads to an entire diatribe about animation and maturity that, to be blunt, has nothing to do with serialization. While also ranting about people that, once again, she cannot be bothered to actually prove exist. There's this one part where she rants about how animation nerds say they want mature animation, but that already exists in the form of Pixar and Studio Ghibli, which they dislike despite praising Puss in Boots.
I've long said that the mature animation nerds want already exist in most Pixar films and like half of Studio Ghibli's work, but because those films tend to be cutesy and friendly, they turn their nose up at it. A Pixar film asking you to stop wasting your life and stop letting it pass by you and enjoy the simpler things by seeing a newborn experience life for the first time, that sounds like it's for babies. Now, a DreamWorks film asking you to stop wasting your life and stop letting it pass by you and enjoy the simpler things by seeing a cat fight Little Timmy's first OC with lots of overly long fight scenes, now that's a real fucking movie.
Of course, arguing with people who don't actually exist has the benefit of them never responding because, as I just established, they aren't fucking real. But that's not the only example of Lily doing this. She also has figured out why people make fun of animation fans.
But I feel like there's a harsh truth that a lot of animation fandom needs to hear. It isn't watching Bluey that makes people think you're an emotionally stunted man-child who refuses to grow up. It's watching Attack on Titan that does that. It's watching Steven Universe and making very sincere arguments that it's a very profound show for adults that does that. It's when you're asked what your favorite magical girl show is and you say the one where little girls get brutally tortured that does that.
And Lily knows this because I don't fucking know. She doesn't even tell us who the people she's talking about even are, so I have no idea how she could determine their reason for holding this opinion.
It's like Manhunt, you know that Rockstar game from 20 years ago about being in a snuff film? It's rated M, which means 12-year-olds aren't supposed to be playing it, but nobody outside of 12-year-olds was actually going to want to play it.
Or people who just like or don't mind violence in their video games, that's also possible. Or the people at Metacritic, Computer Gaming World, Electronic Gaming Monthly, Eurogamer, Game Informer, Game Pro, Game Revolution, GameSpot, GameSpy, GameZone, IGN, Official US PlayStation Magazine, PC Gamer US, Entertainment Weekly, and Maxim, all of which gave Manhunt mixed or positive reviews. They also seemed to want to play it. And Lily goes after the Grand Theft Auto video game series for similar reasons later in the video.
This is why every 13-year-old boy when I was a kid was all over the Grand Theft Auto games, and why it was equally fucking cringeworthy when as adults they tried to claim Grand Theft Auto 5 as one of the greatest games of all time. Billy, you were supposed to have grown out of Grand Theft Auto 7 years ago.
Which, love or hate Grand Theft Auto 5, its acclaim had nothing to do with people trying to look mature or 12-year-olds who thought it was cool that you could kill hookers or whatever. It had to do with the fact that common people thought the game was fun. Really fun, apparently. Or are we supposed to believe that the same group of people just so happened to write the incredibly positive reviews the game got from Edge, Eurogamer, Famousoo, sorry if I mispronounced that, Game Informer, GameSpot, Game Radar Plus, IGN, Joystick Play, and The Escapist? Fuck, The Escapist is the outlet that gave the game the lowest score, and it was 3.5 out of 5, a 70%.
But the superficially mature is something that only young teenagers enjoy. And that's fine, most people grow out of their that's for babies phase, but even when they do, they probably still find a certain childish glee in splatter movies.
Ah yes, known splatter film Psycho. With that said, I admittedly did get a bit of a kick out of Lily dismissing many of these shows, which animation nerds, whatever the fuck that means in this context, and fandom, again, whatever the fuck that means, really like as wantame.
They're doing this strange pantomime where they don't really know what they want to be. This is why we call a lot of them waname, because they want to be like an anime, but their ideas stopped there.
When one of the most disliked cartoons of the past few years was High Guardian Spice, a serialized show with heavy anime influences to the point where it was even exclusive to a streaming service originally created just for anime. Anyway, final thoughts. This video was a complete mess. I don't know what else to say. Good night and good luck.